Thanks, I appreciate that. Thanks. I think, Carol, you just said we had like 36 people on so far. We've invited agents for all of the Coldwell Banker offices located in Westchester. So can you hear me okay?
Yes.
And if everyone can mute.
Okay. So I just wanted to let you know, like, how this sort of came about. So a couple of years ago, Phil and Kathleen came up to Somers, and they came to an office meeting, and they talked about things that were going on legislatively, and they talked about Rpac, and it was a really good meeting. And then I think about a week or so ago, I saw an email from Phil about something related to that world, and I went, it's been a while since we've seen Phil. Let's see what we can do, because in my office, I've had a lot of agents come to me and ask the question, there's so many changes. And I mean, within the last year, just legislatively in the realtor community, I think our heads are kind of spinning because there's been so many changes. And I've had agents come to me and say, well, gosh, who's representing us? Who's in Albany? Who's talking for us? And I try to explain, well, yeah, you do have representatives who do go up to Albany, and they do all these things, and they support it, and that's Rpac. So I thought it would be helpful to bring Phil back in and talk about some of this stuff, and agents can listen to the work that Rpac does. So that's how this sort of evolved. And then I decided, let me just invite the other offices, because we're all doing this electronically now. So let's see if we can get them a big audience. So I'm glad that we had 36 plus. So I think people are still signing on. So let me do the introductions real quick. So the people who are talking today, and I want to thank everybody for coming on, we have people who are from Rpac. So the Rpac co-chairs for 2021 are Carol Christensen, who's going to be speaking. And I think a lot of people know Carol certainly personally, very much a fixture in our Westchester community. And then also Anthony Domathody. I don't know if I said that right. I'm so sorry, Anthony, but thank you. He is also the co-chair for Hgar 2021. And I should mention, I'm sorry, that Carol is the broker owner for Cafe Realty in New York. Anthony is the broker owner and franchisee of record for Exit Realty. And I think I saw somewhere that is Anthony the 2020 president-elect. Is that right? Do I understand that correctly?
2022.
2022, sorry. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I just wanted to say to you guys, before I introduce Phil, I thank you guys for volunteering. I don't think people realize that when they see your names out there, that these are people who are giving of themselves, their time, their expertise to volunteer, to represent the realtor community. And sincerely, I thank you for that. I always have great respect for you guys for doing what you're doing. So thank you so much for that. I know what it means to do that. So thank you. Also with us is Phil. Is it Whedon? I always blow this one. Is it Whedon or Wyden?
That's okay, Wyden.
Thank you so much, Wyden. And Phil is awesome. Phil is the HGAR Government Affairs Director. And you see emails from Phil frequently, usually when he's looking to get some support for a certain piece of legislation that the realtor community is trying to pass. He does great work, and he's very knowledgeable. And so I'm so happy that we have Phil on the call as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you guys. Again, thank you so much. We do appreciate your time this morning, and I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Tammy.
Okay, I'm going to turn it over to, hi guys, I'll just introduce myself really quick. Phil Wyden, I'm the Government Affairs Director for HGAR. I've been here 6 years, and I was with the Government Affairs Department for the Long Island Board of Realtors for the 7 years before that. So I've been around with you guys, been a pleasure in Realtor World for a long time now. And I'm going to turn it over to Carol Christensen for the first part of the program. So take it away, Carol and Anthony.
Okay, thank you, Anthony. Phil. Thank you, Phil. Okay, I'm Carol Christensen, chair of the Rpac committee this year, and last year I was also co-chair. And I've been a member of the Rpac committee for at least 10 years, I would say, because it's very important. Okay, what is it? What is Rpac? Well, we represent you. Rpac is representation up to Albany for communities and realtors. And Phil will go into that a little bit later, exactly what we do. Why is it important to you in your business? Well, it's very important to you in your business. The biggest part is if everybody here is a homeowner and you have the STAR program, thank Rpac. Most agents really don't know that, but Rpac has been the person, the committee that has lobbied up to Albany to get the STAR program and get our taxes reduced. Also, if you received unemployment last year, due to the pandemic, thank Rpac, because Rpac is the lobby. We lobbied up to Albany to get that for us. So Rpac has been working for you as a realtor and for our communities with the STAR program. You can see that's for our communities. For unemployment, it's for us as agents that we were, even though we're independent contractors, we were able to get that, and that was Rpac. And there's many other different bills that Rpac has gone through and put forward lobbying up in Albany. So it's very important. It's important to you as a realtor. It's important to you for your business. And it's important to you as a homeowner and a community member. And with that, I'll pass it over to Anthony, and he'll talk a little bit more about Rpac.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, great. Okay. I've had a little trouble with my laptop this morning, but great to see all of you on the Zoom call. Hopefully we can do this in person. And first of all, I'm honored to co-chair Rpac this year with the fabulous, energetic, well-spoken Carol Christensen.
Thank you,
and we are your Rpac co-chairs, and I'm sure you probably heard of Rpac, and you might not know what it actually is. Rpac is your line of defense in the industry. Our mission, Rpac's mission, is to protect you, your business, and your clients. Supporting Rpac today secures the future of our profession and is a strong voice fighting for real estate issues and private property rights. As a realtors, we need someone to guard our business against threats that we can see coming. Rpac defends us from bad policy at the state capitol and city hall by working with realtors, championing our causes and protecting our industry regardless of our political affiliation. Unlike most investments, you can see Rpac dollars at work here in New York and in our community. Let's think about this for a second. Have you ever sold a property with a 30-year mortgage? Have you sold a property that became a rental? Rpac saved the 30-year mortgage. It defeated a 10% down payment on FHA loans and defeated a tax on commissions. If you answered yes to any of these questions, then it doesn't matter. If you love or hate politics, Rpac is there for you and your clients. Our industry is under constant threat. So it's important that you do your part to invest in Rpac each year. There are countless ways for you to invest in Rpac, and Carol will give you the specifics in a minute. Do not wait to invest. Do it today. Rpac is not the Republican Party. It's not the Democratic Party. It's your realtor party. It doesn't matter how you invest. Just make sure you do it. So Rpac can protect your tomorrow today because that's who we are. Phil?
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Okay. Am I taking it? I'll take it from here, I guess, now. Wanted to talk about the HGAR legislative priorities.
Next slide.
Our
Kathleen's
Oh,
supposed
next
to be
slide.
doing the slides. Yeah.
Next slide, Kathleen. You have our HGAR.com. Okay, hold on one sec. Okay. Or not.
Have you got it, Phil?
No.
We got it. Yes. So anyone who, if you know about Rpac, tomorrow night is our first event of the year, our Rpac Trivia Night. We urge everybody to register. It's going to be great. It's our upcoming events are for that, which is our first event of the year. We have a legislative and legal update in Manhattan and the Bronx coming up on March 18th. Not in the Bronx and Manhattan, but you know what I mean, via Zoom. That covers those two areas. We also have nicar.com and our Rpac events throughout the year. NICAR, you can contribute online. So if you go to nicar.com or hgar.com and you type in your NERDS ID, you can donate right there on Invest Today for the Realtors Political Action Committee. So I find that way is the easiest way to invest rather than having to print out a paper or mail a check. You can certainly do the alternative, but it is, it's not the click of a button on the computer. So I'll start off by talking. As you know, I am the Government Affairs Director. I deal with everything at the state, federal, and local level. The HGAR legislative priorities, if you look at them, are extremely important. And these are the NICAR legislative priorities, too, that you were sent, that we pull our priorities from. So our priorities include many, many bills that we fight for and against. So I'm going to talk about a bunch of them, and then feel free to ask me questions during it or after it. I'll cover both the state, local, and federal level. I'll start off with the state level priorities. On the state level, we are fighting against, which has been enacted in California, where we won a victory there, to keep realtors independent contractor status. Assembly Bill 2685 seeks to change independent contractors into employees, which would fundamentally alter our model. This doesn't specifically target realtors, but we're looking to insert language in that bill that would say real estate licensees are exempt from this new law. This bill is basically 2685 in the Assembly. Assembly Member Joyner is a bill that would change your status, but mostly targets Uber and Lyft. That's really the goal of it. As you know, you have what they call the gig economy or the sharing economy. It's trying to get Uber and Lyft for people who drive the 80, 90, 100 hours a week, who don't get paid in benefits like a taxi driver does, for instance, who doesn't get salary and benefits. So we're conveying to our assembly members and our senators that we want to keep our independent contractor status, and that would be a disaster if they got rid of that. So it's critically important that we convey, and that if you speak to any of your state senators, please keep your independent contractor status. A bunch of the other things. Providing rent relief to tenants and building owners. I'm going to get into that on a federal and state level, but we're pushing for, on the state level, for more rent relief for landlords. A lot of the time throughout this crisis, landlords have not gotten direct aid. We've been pushing for housing vouchers so that they can go right to the landlords. Unfortunately, it's just been ad hoc eviction moratorium extensions constantly on and off. So we want rent relief, which we are going to get that in the new American Rescue Package. We'll have about $25 billion in rent relief nationwide coming down, which will help a lot for people late on their rent, and it'll help landlords stay in business and not go into foreclosure. So that's very important that we're going to get that in the American Rescue Package that they're passing. The other bill statewide, we did, if you noticed in the last 2 years, really last year and the year before, we had the Long Island scandal breaking, where a lot of members of LIBOR had violations of fair housing laws. We always prided ourselves for HGAR that we're very progressive on the fair housing front. So we're working to pass fair housing protections, to more people and strengthen fair housing laws. What that means is we're supporting bills that would add 2 hours of implicit bias education for training. We're also supporting bills for co-op transparency legislation. We're supporting bills that increase pre-licensing course hours. We're supporting bills to increase testing and fines. So if people are violating fair housing laws, they face higher fines, to raise it to $2,000, up from $1,000. These are all bills in the state assembly. We're supporting a state senate that passed the state senate, which is about a package of 15 bills that would really help root out housing discrimination, which is still unfortunately rampant in this era. So that would be a great thing. There is one bill that we're opposing that seeks to require you to solicit or investigate or ask for a person's demographic data. There is a bill that would ask you to ask the person their background, their age, their race. We are strongly against the one fair housing bill that we think would be a disaster, that is unenforceable, that we're not, we like to say with these bills that we're not the police and shouldn't be expected to, uphold certain things. That's not in our purview. Well, this is trying to make us census worker. So that would be, I think, a disaster. It it doesn't accomplish the goal of fair housing, and it doesn't put us, it puts us in tremendous legal. That bill we want to fight against. That bill we want to stop. So I think that one of the keys to do that is to convey that we're for a lot of these, for testing, paired testing, which would test everyone to make sure they're not discriminating against renters or buyers, but we're not to collect demographic data. There is also another bill that got lumped into this that has a paperwork bill, I like to call it, that makes realtors, forces them to write down their real estate ID number and sign every single page, every single document that they deal with. This is another bill that is a tremendous nuisance bill that would increase your costs, increase your time wasted, that we must fight against. And this is by Assemblyman Hoylman. Assemblyman Hoylman in the Assembly always seems to have these bills that target us for whatever reason. He likes to do this. So he is somebody that that we're really pushing back on when it comes to this stuff. He also sponsors other bills. He is a big sponsor in New York City of proposing a pied-à-terre tax. His bill is S4199, and it would oppose a pied-à-terre tax on New York City home buyers who own and do not live in New York, but come and own part-time and live part-time in the city. This would be a disaster. We're fighting against this with the Real Estate Board of New York. This is supposed to only target supposedly $5 million or more in terms of purchase property, but I don't really believe that. And it targets the assessed value in New York City at $300,000 or more. So when government says, oh, it's only going to affect somebody with $20 million or $10 million, you can guess that that's not going to happen. You can guess that the threshold is going to cover a lot more people. It's going to hit the middle class. It's going to hit a lot more people than they say. And this won't just be relegated to New York City. This eventually does spread statewide. What starts in one place does start in another. So that's Hoylman's bill. We're also opposed to a slew of increases in the transfer tax and the mortgage recording tax and a flip tax. Assemblyman DeLon has a bill where he wants to impose a flip tax of 20% or more if you try to buy a property in New York City, fix it up, and sell it. That's A3259 on page 2, if you see that, of the legislative priorities. This is a 20% tax on a year or less if you fix it up. And they're honest about the goal now. It used to be they would lie to us. Now they tell us that they're coming for us. The goal, they say, is to stop house flipping and try to drag down the value of real estate properties. In their view, that is one reason, driving people supposedly out of neighborhoods, which factually is not true and will lead to disinvestment over the long haul. So that's important to know on that one. That's really an extremely, extremely bad one that's coming up. That is for New York City. But again, New York City, if it happens in New York City, it will happen statewide. The transfer tax also, a couple of years ago, we fought and defeated a proposed increase in Yonkers. The city of Yonkers proposed a transfer tax that would have doubled the transfer tax from 1.5 to 3%, which would have meant an $8,000 tax hike on properties being sold at $500,000. So that is a tremendous tax increase. And that's something through realtor outreach and rallying our members, we were able to defeat in the city of Yonkers. So that was extremely important several years ago. And we're always on the lookout for new transfer. Also, other things that we're looking to do is stop a bill that is really bad called good cause eviction. This is by Senator Salazar. She's brand new. She's honest about, but she does not believe in capitalism. This is an exaggeration. This is in her own words, that she'd like to get rid of home ownership and private ownership of housing. This bill would essentially take away a landlord's right in the Senate bill to renew the person's lease. It would be an automatic lease for renewal for the tenant, and the landlord would no longer be able to set the terms of a new lease, of a lease renewal. So this bill, good cause eviction, is tremendously damaging. It caps increases at 1 to 1.5%, or the rate of inflation, whichever is higher. That obviously, we know inflation outside of a few things is a lot higher usually than 1%, especially when you include fuel, food, and other costs. Housing goes well above inflation, and capping that would devastate landlords and devastate the private market. So they did this in California. And the difference being in California, they softened the good cause eviction bill so that you could increase it over 5% a year, 5 to 7%. The real estate industry in California ended up endorsing that bill in order to weaken some of the more anti-homeowner provisions and anti-landlord provisions in it. This is something we can't do. In our view, this is something full stop that we have to be against. This is an attack directly on private property rights. And your right to own and run your business. And a landlord to run their business. So good cause eviction is the bill. It would impose an onerous standard and add an extra layer of court bureaucracy that you would have to get a good cause eviction to go and evict a person. So simply a person not paying rent for 120 days or a couple months. If they didn't pay rent, it already takes a long time in New York City and outside New York City to evict someone, as you know, in the state of New York. Nobody's thrown on the street in just 30 days. So this after the 2019 rent law was enacted is tremendously devastating in that respect. It would force a landlord to wait probably many, many more months to have to go to court and get a quote unquote good cause to evict someone. To us, if you don't pay your rent and you have the ability to pay and you have your job and you decide not to pay, that's what we have evictions for. That's why we have contracts. If I don't pay my mortgage, they don't smile and say to me, we're going to let you stay in your house if you're both employed and you have the ability to pay. That would tear up contract law and home ownership rights. So we are strident one of those bills that we must stop. We're also seeking changes to that's not in here. We are pushing changes over time to the New York City and state rent laws. This good cause eviction bill also would establish rent control across the state and take out a municipality's ability to enact rent control and just make it a statewide mandate and enact it. So right now for rent control, each municipality has the right to opt into rent control if there's a 5% vacancy rate in that municipality. This would take it away. If you see in Manhattan right now, prices have been going way down for rent. There's no need for more rent controls as prices keep declining. So for rentals, so that, this is a problem in search of a solution outside the city, where what we need to do is build more housing. And that's the ultimate solution to this, is to build our way out of this, not put artificial price controls on it. So that's something we're fighting against. And we're also fighting against cease and desist zones. If you've heard of cease and desist zones, you know well, it's kind of like a do not call list, where if enacted in certain parts of other counties, if it happens in one, it happens in Brooklyn and Queens. It'll happen in other places. It happens in Rockland County. And this is a cease and desist zone that says a realtor cannot call somebody who opts to be on a cease and desist list and cannot contact them via cold calling, via mail, via knocking on their door, via email. It would ban them unless they checked the list that they were not on the list. That means every day, for instance, you would have to go over a list of thousands of people to see if you were able to contact someone and they were on that cease and desist list. It's onerous, and again, this is another direct attack on a way to practice your business. This doesn't apply to flower shops or car companies or insecticide companies or exterminators. I get a tick notice every other day of the week in my mailbox that affects tick spray and exterminators. I don't see people clamoring for exterminators to be banned from advertising their services. It's a right. You should have a right to advertise your services. If you don't like it, then the person who gets the ad can simply throw it away. That's what we do. So that's important to stop this. What we do support locally, and what we always notify everybody locally, if you're getting unwanted advertising at your door, is to allow a house to put a do not knock sign on their property that says you cannot come on my property and advertise your services, and you cannot knock on my door. They've done this in certain towns in Long Island and the Hudson Valley, and that is much less onerous. It doesn't violate a realtor's or anybody's ability. It applies to everyone equally, and it's just a decal where a person would get a sign and put it on their property that says, please do not come on my property and advertise any service. So that we do not mind and we support, but we cannot support something that forces us out of business. Other bills like this in past years, we've had assemblymen and senators who wanted to prohibit you from practicing your business outside of your town or county in which you live or work. Again, another attack on your ability to earn a living. These bills are quite honestly crazy. There's no way to say it. That's kind of mild language to describe the bills coming out of the state assembly and the state senate. The other bills, transfer taxes, we've defeated. As you know, we talked about the Yonkers one. We're trying to stop other increases. If you hear of any, please let us know. We're always trying to stop transfer taxes, especially at the local level. That is something that we're trying to do. We're also coming out for money for rural. The higher north you go and the farther west, it applies to different areas, but we're supporting for the first time big investments in broadband, universal broadband, especially for areas as the more north you get that are harder to reach, which would, may not affect all of us, but is important in connecting us, in our opinion, being able to do buying from, and if they don't have good access to the internet. So these are a lot of the things that we're touching on, that we're fighting for. As Carol mentioned, we're fighting for the STAR program. A couple of years ago, we fought a 20% down payment requirement that would have required all new home buyers to put 20% down. Can you imagine if you went through all your buyers over the years, who was able to put 20% down? If you had to put 20% down, middle-class home ownership would not exist. It would be only the wealthy, the super wealthy would be able to own homes. So that is important. We stopped that. We supported the FHA. We're strong supporters of preserving that and increasing funding for the fundamentally sound. The financing is good. We're supporting the GSEs, the government-sponsored enterprises, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. That's what provides the 30-year down payment. That's 30-year down payment, the 30-year mortgage for home ownership. If you did not have Fannie and Freddie, you would not have, again, 30-year mortgage and middle-class home ownership on a federal level. We're also fighting to reinstate the SALT deduction. I think we may have some success there. At the very least, my former boss, Congressman Tom Suozzi, has a bill to double the SALT deduction from $10,000 to $20,000 for the cap. We hope to reenact it totally, but many fiscal studies that are done have said at the very least it should be raised to $23,000, the SALT deduction, and that would provide in New York a lot of relief to people. There's arguments you could make that it shouldn't be applied to somebody who owns a $20 million house, but most people who take advantage of the SALT deduction, again, are middle-class home buyers in New York State. Our housing costs are unlike anywhere else in the country. Only about 5 to 10 states really take advantage of the SALT deduction, and that's something that we want. So we're fighting for that in Congress. We're fighting for rental assistance, which is going to be a good thing. Landlords are in desperate need of rental assistance. We'll have emergency housing vouchers, hopefully going out to people. There's going to be an extension of the pandemic unemployment assistance, which you guys have received. For people that have lost jobs, it'll add up to, again, $300 a week an additional on top of regular unemployment that will be extended through at least September. That's a lifeline to people. Your Rpac money fought for the first time ever for pandemic unemployment assistance, aka unemployment insurance, for independent contractors and realtors. That's never happened. That's an added benefit that I think was a tangible benefit that every realtor understood last year when the pandemic started. This is something that is a pandemic, we like to say every once in a century, but really a once in a lifetime event that occurs, although we've had a lot of them the last 20 years that occurred in the US with the economic crisis. But in times of distress, it's important that we support ourselves, support our market, and support our industry. So that's been a tremendous lifeline. So those are a lot of the things we do. We fought for mortgage debt relief. If any of you know, the mortgage debt relief is for short sales. We continuously fight for that so that properties do not go into foreclosure. If your properties go into foreclosure, that's bad for you, it's bad for the banks, and it's bad for your neighborhood. So if you can get a short sale, that will keep it from being real estate owned property. There will be a loss, but the mortgage debt tax forgiveness, which is mortgage debt relief, the continuous extension of that year after year has been great. It's prevent tax debt from being taxed as income, which obviously if you get slammed with an income tax bill, that's not good. That puts you in a hole at a time when your buyers or homeowners are suffering and when they need help to get out of it. So that stuff is important. In the American Rescue Package, the first $10,200 in benefits that you got in potential unemployment insurance, or potential money in the checks or the relief that you got, the first $10,000 of that are going to be forgiven, so that you do not owe tax if you got money from the government in this past pandemic. That's another huge benefit. It doesn't make sense to give you money and then saddle you with a high tax bill. Kind of defeats the purpose at all of giving you relief. So that's a strong thing that we can do. I think there's also going to be some forgiveness for 401ks if you took money out of it, to be able to get that forgiven if you borrowed against that. That's important to know. Again, that's not in something we're lobbying for, but they're just mentioning it for informational purposes. We're also fighting for extension of the National Flood Insurance Program every year. Believe it or not, that is something that we're working on, a 5-year reauthorization that would encourage more private options to come on the market for unemployment, for the flood insurance. Basically what this bill does is it would give you a slew of options when purchasing insurance. Right now, you have different levels, for instance, of car insurance. A driver like me for years who did not obey speed limits would have $350 to $400 a month in insurance costs. And that's luckily not the case anymore, because I don't do those things anymore. But when that would happen, I would be considered higher risk, so I'd have to pay a higher insurance premium. So what we're looking for, what the National Flood Insurance Program would do with these new private insurance options, is you could cover up to a certain value of your house. So if your house was 50 years old and you wanted to rebuild it, but you were willing to accept it to rebuild a smaller house if your house was destroyed in a hurricane, this would give you options that you didn't have to cover the entire house if you only want to cover a portion of it. We view that as good. It would lower insurance rates, and it could potentially produce more risk for you, but that's a risk that we would allow you to choose, that would allow you to understand. You could buy full protection or partial protection, but we want to give these options to homeowners. We don't think it should be forced to do it. So that's important to know for the National Flood Insurance Program. Like-kind exchanges, 1031 like-kind exchanges on the federal level, we're fighting to preserve. Thankfully, that's not in the American Rescue Act that's likely to pass today. That was on the administration's agenda coming in to get rid of that tax benefit for commercial properties. I think we're going to be able to keep that. Thankfully, there seems to be bipartisan support for that, and we'll keep you updated on that. The local legislative priorities, which Kathleen has put up before you, as you know, a lot of you probably buy and sell co-ops and co-op housing. Co-ops take long, they're arduous. It's the only form of housing where you're not told why you're being denied. Currently in Westchester, there is a 60-day time period to accept or reject a buyer, a potential buyer, or renter even, of a co-op. if you do not receive the answer in 60 days, they're supposed to give you, under current Westchester County law, they have to notify the Human Rights Commission why they have to notify the Human Rights Commission that they're denying you. What they don't have to do right now is tell you why they're denying you. And that's a problem that we've seen. Since this law was enacted in 2018, we've had at least 500 rejections that we know of. I would assume in the county, it's double that. Unfortunately, this law, while good, only really leads to self-regulation. So what we want is a reason in writing mandated that you have to provide a reason why you're being denied. That would allow us to see if there's a pattern of people of a specific protected class, such as race, religion, age, gender, whatever it may be, about why they're being denied from that co-op. If, for instance, you saw a building deny 30 people qualified, let's say with a 750 credit score and a 20% down payment, you can tell that there's some discriminatory reason that's probably going on there. But right now, under the law, when you don't have to tell why you're being denied, that doesn't allow you to see a pattern of discrimination. So co-ops are arduous. We're also looking to insert language that they must put an automatic acceptance in that 60-day time frame if the person doesn't get an answer. That one's a little bit harder. I don't know why. I personally wrote the Suffolk County co-op law that has the reason in writing. It's not arduous to write this stuff if you know what you're doing and you phrase it. It was only 2 to 3 pages, that law that I wrote for them, word for word. So laws don't have to be hundreds of pages. I did it. If there's a will, there's a way. And the 15-day time period that we have says that you have to notify the prospective purchaser of the co-op within 15 days. The Suffolk County law I wrote, the Village of Hempstead law, the Rockland County law that doesn't have the reason also, all say that you have to automatically accept the person if the co-op does not give them an answer. The co-ops have said, at first they said there was no racism or unfair. That one was laughable, and there was no rejections. That one was laughable because now we've had over 500 known rejections. The Human Rights Commission, we view, has fallen off the job. They're the one that's supposed to issue fines and investigations into the co-op boards if they're suspected of discrimination. We're hoping to beef them up with more power. Thankfully, the money Congress is sending money to state and local governments in the latest rescue package, and they can't complain that we don't have the resources to do investigations. So we urge you, there's a current call for action, and we urge every Westchester person, realtor, that can do it. Please, please, please. We've had almost 300 responses so far. 200 some odd responses to click this call for action. I think Kathleen has it on another slide, but this will go to your legislator and wherever you live or practice. You'll fill in, please pass the reason in writing, stating why you're being denied in the Westchester County Legislature. So that's important to take action on that. It's called a call for action. If you don't have it, I can send it out to you if it's not on the slides. But it's important that we pass that. It's important that you take action on that. Call your legislators, let them know, let the county executive know. The county executive we have a great working relationship with, but politicians, doesn't matter what political party, tend to waffle when they tell you one thing. A year from now, suddenly things that they promised you are negotiable. So we need everybody. If the call for action is not in your area and you don't practice there, still call the county executive and the legislature for Westchester County and urge them to pass the reason in writing. We're also pushing to require all co-op boards to provide all the address information of everybody, so that there's not incomplete applications. We'd love and want to push for a standard application for all co-ops. That's going to be a bit of a harder lift because the boards will argue that it violates their right to conduct their business as they see fit in terms of how they run their paperwork. But at the very least, they should be required to provide all information of everybody in a normal and straightforward manner that we're pushing. So this would be a tremendous victory. This would be the first of its kind if we could get the reason. We're also pushing that at the national level to get co-ops on the National Association of Realtors legislative agenda to be dealt with. New York City legislators love to talk about fair housing and how there's so much violations, but believe it or not, it's primarily the city legislators that have been stopping this year after year after year and stopping co-op fair housing legislation. So we're working hard to enact this and change the minds of people. It's going to be a big lift, but we need to do it. We're also want to stop any legislative tax hikes, mortgage recording tax hikes on the local level. So if you ever hear of that, let us know, and we'll launch a call for action, just like the co-ops, to stop any transfer or mortgage recording tax. I've covered a mouthful of a lot of issues. If you have any questions, feel free now to jump in, please, and fire anything you can at me, or Anthony or Carol, who do a tremendous job as your Rpac committee chairs.
Wow, Phil, thank you so much. That was amazing. It's amazing that you have all that information in your head. As I'm listening to you go on and on and on, I'm going, oh boy, I'm very lucky we have him on our side. That was really impressive. Can speaking, can somebody mute, please? Okay, thank you. I do have a couple of questions, and if anybody else has questions, they could certainly unmute and ask questions or put it in the chat. I wanted to just clarify a couple things. So
absolutely.
So you mentioned about the additional 2 hours of training for implicit bias. That is within the 22.5 hours. Is that correct?
No, this bill would actually add 2 hours of implicit bias education. Actually, no, you're right. It is actually within, I'm looking at it now for clarification. It is within the 22.5 hours of continuing ed. For license renewal. So it would add 2 hours, but not change, not unless they amend the bill. Right? That could always happen. But under the current bill, they would just add the 2 hours of implicit bias within the 22.5 hours itself. So that would stay the same.
And other kinds of things that have changed. It's just really, I think the onus is almost on the real estate schools to create that curriculum so that this way agents have that within a package. So if that gets passed, it's great information to have, of course, and it's so important, but it's not adding to the 22.5 hours. I just wanted to clarify that point for people. The other question that I had—
That's a great question.
Yeah, no, I think it's just critical because people get really, nervous about that stuff. You have something, I don't think you talked about it, but in the legislative priorities, you have something about trying to provide some assistance for home buyers. And it looks as if it's providing not only just a home buyer savings account, but create middle and low income home ownership incentive programs to make home buying more accessible for all New Yorkers. And I think everybody gets that because it is difficult. And in this particular market, and who knows when we'll see the end of it, if you're a home buyer with 5 or 10% down and you're a first-time home buyer, it's real tough for these guys at the moment. It's a very difficult market for them to be able to get in and compete with maybe 9 other offers where people have more money. This is a challenge. And I just kind of wanted to throw out there that this may sound counterintuitive, but I think sometimes the seller needs to be incentivized as well to work with home buyers who are in this kind of a pickle, who might need a little bit more assistance. So, because a home seller is going to be inclined to say, okay, I see your offer and I see you're getting some assistance, but at the same time, here's this other person with 20, 30% down. I'm more inclined to accept that offer. So I don't know if there's some way to, people far smarter than me can maybe figure this out, but to somehow motivate or incentivize a seller to accept that type of an offer. It's just a thought. There's no answer, but I think that's a challenge right now.
Yeah, I think there's no one answer to affordability challenge. I think we need broad-based solutions, if you will. So there's not one thing that's just going to, flip at the drop of a hat and say, oh, suddenly everything's affordable. But things like the property tax cap that we fought for was a good thing. That sort of reins in the increases. But the first-time home buyer, getting first-time buyers is typically, they don't have money, as you said, they don't have the money saved up. So the $10,000 Save First-Time Homebuyer Savings Account program would allow married couples to put $10,000 away or $5,000 for singles, tax-free. I personally think it should be a lot higher to be able to put away tax free. But again, it's the taxes. Why it's a great bill. It's a fantastic bill to save money, like a 529. The only issue I have with it is I don't feel like it does enough to increase home ownership. It's great, but you aren't tremendously taxed high on savings accounts as is. It's not like if I put money in a savings account, I'm paying hundreds or thousands of dollars every year on taxes. So while it's good, what we need to do is get assistance out there, all types of assistance for people to be able to buy homes and build wealth that way. Supporting block grants for communities, affordable housing incentives, home ownership incentives, home ownership funding. I think direct funding would also be good. There's all types of solutions. Those bills that again you mentioned, especially around zoning, places that have less zoning restrictions tend to have lower housing costs that way. Those are normal market incentives that go with lowering housing costs, where if you build more homes or build more both ownership and rentals, you'll get lower housing costs over the long term. Those are things that we're looking to do, and those are things both the state and the feds need to play a role in. We're also for the, as you know, those bills, the capital plan for multifamily affordable housing. A lot of multifamily housing has been the big boon in recent years, especially in our central cities in Westchester. But even if you're not in the central city, you could be in more of the rural part of Westchester. If you're near a train station, you might be able to walk to the train station or take a bike to the train station. If you don't want to have a car, you can theoretically live in large parts of Westchester and not have to have a car. If you don't want to. A lot of quote unquote millennials, I don't even know what generation X, Y, Z, A, B, C they come up with. It's not a knock on the generations. It's just they come up with a new letter every few years. But if you're younger buyers, new first time buyers, I should say, they're looking, they might not want to live in the city anymore, but they still want the downtown feel, as you know, and they want to live reasonably close. I don't say close, it doesn't have to be exactly, but reasonably close to a train station where you can be able to commute to work. And that's all that is vital. There's funding for it. I think the argument from a lot of the governments that we don't have money, the deficit projections for New York for money for this, for home ownership, the revenue projections, the deficits are far less worse than originally predicted, thanks to the rise in the stock market and federal aid that's coming in, both last year and now this year. So there's plenty of money to be able to give to first-time buyers and get it out there. It's just a question of what their priorities want to be. And unfortunately, this year the last 2 years have been a large attack on landlords and homeowners, and prioritizing that. The big thing that we've also been prioritizing is getting relief for people and relief to the GSEs and to people directly, so that they don't go into foreclosure if they fall behind. If they wanted to do a forbearance and all these measures so that their home does not get eliminated. There's been funding to backstop basically buyers who fall behind, and not buyers, homeowners who fall behind. We got to do everything we can to keep people in their homes and paying. We don't want people to fall behind and have a 2008, 2009 like crisis. So, but all these solutions together will help make New York more affordable.
Hey, Phil.
Thank you.
We have two questions in the chat. The first one is, do not call. How can we make sure that allowing calls does not negate fair housing?
How can we be sure that allowing calls does not negate fair housing? I'm not sure 100%.
Let me explain my question. A lot of times with the calling of people in certain neighborhoods, it's blockbusting and, oh, did you know who's in your neighborhood now? I know that in certain cities in Rockland County, some of the people are very aggressive trying to move people out so other people can move in. I've heard that's been done. So I'm all for, being able to call people, but I know that a lot of that is in relationship, and a lot of the do not call is to really make sure that people are not calling people and saying, you know, your neighborhood, a lot of this kind of people are moving in and a lot of that kind of people are moving in. What is being done to make sure if we open it up, it's just postcards, let me do a CMA and that type of thing?
Well, my response to that is that's already illegal and needs to have better enforcement. That goes along with the testing. So if you have a member, if you have a realtor, if you have a non-realtor, which is the case in Rockland County in a lot of these instances, we found most of these instances of Rockland County discrimination going on. Most of it, some of them were, but the overwhelming majority wasn't even realtor members, weren't even real estate licensees. But I would say that already violates fair housing law. If you find a person who's doing this, report them to the Department of State. That person who's violating that, who's calling up and saying this race or this religion is moving in and the value of your property is going to go down, they're violating fair housing law, and you should report them. And that's the way you root out these people. But to say we're going to do a cease and desist zone, that violates your right to practice your business. That's fundamentally making it illegal to practice your business in that area. And that's just, that doesn't solve the ultimate problem, but also I think shouldn't be legal and shouldn't be accepted. It doesn't apply to other businesses. It's bad enough, but it's also bad because it targets us as opposed to targeting companies generally. It's you know, it's not fair treatment. I would say that the government should increase fines on these people. I think that's one way to do it. If they're violating these laws and committing blockbusting or doing these fair housing violations, fine them. Let's root them out. We're supportive of all the bills, the fair housing bills currently in the legislature. For the anti-discrimination bills, we support every single one of them with the exception of the demographic collection bill, which we see a lot of problems with just being able to do it. With that, we shouldn't be in the business, we view, of asking you invasive questions on what race, religion, sexual orientation you might be, any of that stuff. That's stuff that you can report to the Census Bureau, but that we're not really qualified to determine. And that's how people who don't mean to get into trouble. And that's one of the things that we should not be doing. So that's the one bill that we're against, but we're supporting anti-discrimination housing efforts. We're supporting increases in testing to make sure people are not discriminating. And the anti-blockbusting issue is, to me, is a fair housing issue. Is that the way to do that is to issue fair housing fines to the people doing this, and suspend or ban them from practicing if they're knowingly doing this and they're doing it, period. We've always been in favor. HGAR has been very progressive over other real estate boards around the country in fighting for this. A lot of real estate boards would not necessarily endorse higher fines, but we were out for higher fines and more testing before the Long Island scandal even occurred. So it's important that everyone knows that we're not hiding from these issues, that we're supporting reform in this, and we want people that are violating the law to be held accountable. So that's important. I see other questions about the rent relief program.
Thank you so much for your thorough answer. That's all I wanted to say. And a lot of people are violating the don't call for realtors, because I get calls all the time on my properties and they're just like, you want to sell? It's just terrible. But thank you so much. This is a great call, by the way.
You're welcome. And I understand. Look, nobody loves calls. But most of my calls that I get, I find annoying, are not even people, honest realtors trying to advertise their business to me, or honest flower shops. It's these, the robocalls you get with the scam artists trying to get me to win a free cruise, or scams like that, which we've all gotten. Which makes me laugh when they try to do a cease and desist list, because put aside our views against it, the government's not even good at doing this. They're not even good at enforcing it. What makes us think passing the list itself is going to work? So that's the other reason. I think it's not enforceable. It's not really that enforceable. I think the best we can do with this stuff, if you want, is just ignore it, throw it out, but also block the phone number. That's all. That's the best thing we can do. I feel like every year I put my name on the do not call list, and I still get a call the next day from another robocaller. So
Phil, someone had asked you to repeat the legislator that you discussed that was passed for rent relief for landlords. the person said, I have tenants that have not
Rent
paid
relief
their
for
rent.
landlords. I have to do, yes. So the rent relief for landlords, I'm going to go back and get the name of it for you, but it was called, it was a small program, the Tenant Safe Harbor Act, where they gave the governor unilateral power to extend every month, extend the eviction moratorium, and it was supposed to provide rent relief on a state level to landlords. Unfortunately, like so many government things, the way they run it is it didn't provide really that much aid to people, and the government. I'll get you the name of it. It's called the the Tenant Safe Harbor Act. Was for the renters, but the landlords were supposed to get aid out of it, but very little aid has actually been spent. So I'll get you the law and I'll get you the information on it. Let me get back. There really hasn't been much tangible aid to this point for landlords. We've been pushing hard for increased emergency assistance for landlords in the form of direct assistance to landlords, but also housing vouchers for renters. That goes to both people. It protects both sides, keeps people in their housing, and that sort of thing. It would also prevent them from then ruining credit scores. I think one of the things that we're pushing for national legislation, but I think on a state level that we need to is push to have included in your credit scores is things like paying your cable bill on time, your electric on time, your rent on time. If you're paying these things on time, why is it not counted? It's not everybody has, credit cards and has a credit history. This would show people that if you pay your rent and your bills on time, the most important thing is that you're qualified and you're well-qualified buyer and owner and renter. So we want to expand credit access too. Credit's too limited to what they account for. So I think it's important that we start to deal with those issues. But I will get you the relief. I will get you the information. There is local relief programs too that I can send you information on. But the thing we need most is coming from the federal government. That's going to be the $25 billion. That should be direct cash assistance to people to get landlord relief. Because if landlords go under, you're going to see a flight back to what we were 50 years ago, where we had buildings falling apart. So.
And then the next question is Rpac working to modify the executive order to allow agents to solicit via phone or text again?
Yeah, so right now that order has typically been extended. Every time it's extended, you have what you call that you cannot do the cold calling. The legislature passed and the governor signed taking away his executive emergency powers. As you know, lately, it's not getting into personal opinions, but the last couple of weeks have not been kind to the governor, and the legislature, for a myriad of reasons, decided to revoke his emergency powers, because emergency is supposed to be emergency and not indefinitely, forever. So the hope is that with this, is that he's not unilaterally extending this forever. Which has been the case month after month, that you're able to then resume cold calling and resume all this stuff. Currently, the cold calling restrictions exist, but we're hoping that doesn't last forever. That's important, that this doesn't go on forever. We have, I'm not a doctor, but we do have the vaccines out. Connecticut is opening fully, 100%. You can do the ban on real estate for showings for immediately in the beginning for the first few weeks could be understandable, but real estate showings, you can do plenty of social distance. You don't have to, you can do with plenty of distance where you have 6 feet apart when you're showing a house. That's very doable and easy to adapt to. And that had a realtor showing a house had nothing to do with the spread of COVID, unless they were, having a house party of 200 people. So so those things that we wanted to, we weren't personally lobbying on, but we're not unhappy that the governor's power is kind of being curtailed little by little to return this to regular business environment. Now under the revocation of his emergency powers, these type of powers will go back to local levels, and county executives can declare emergencies if they need to, but it's not a one-size-fits-all solution, especially with infection rates going down. We know CDC protocols, realtors know to abide by them. We have HGAR COVID resource page. We have a nice COVID resource page, and there's tons of resources out there to provide people on how to stay safe while you show houses and conduct your business in a safe way. But we the restrictions we feel should not go on forever. At some point we need to start resuming businesses on some semblance of what they call normal footing, whatever that is, whatever way that is. But there's a way to do it, obviously.
Phil, the Tenant Safe Harbor Act was passed by Senator Brad Hoylman, and it was also signed by Jeffrey Dinowitz. So just throwing that in. And also you get the daily COVID update, the bulletin and email that Gary sends out, and I'm sure you're looking at that. It has a ton of resources and information there as well.
Absolutely. And I also have my twice a month legislative column. If you guys read, the last one was on the governor targeting the enhanced STAR deduction for seniors. He's trying to get rid of the deduction and turn it into a credit. The reason he's trying to do this, the state counts it as a reduction in revenue if they could do it as a credit, as a reduction in spending instead of a reduction in revenue. So for fiscal purposes, the governor can sort of use a gimmick to say he's saving money when he's really not, but allows him to count it differently in the state budget. So you would get you'd still get the money, but you wouldn't get it in upfront savings if you purchase a home. You would get the money in a credit check that they send every year. The other negative is that you would also have more money potentially then taken out into escrow, which you could get, as you know, you could get the money back, but you get that money back in a check instead of getting the money in a deduction. I remember a year or two ago, I think I got $1,500 check back, which was nice, but they overtook they took too much money from me instead of taking too little. They overtook. And that's the problem with changing this. The governor's doing this. He's been chipping away at this every few years to try and turn this into a credit program instead of a deduction. This would apply only to seniors, but it's just the legislature is against it. So hopefully we'll be able to beat it back again, but it's not fair in our opinion. So.
Thank you. Carol, do you want to mention or Anthony, the Facebook Rpac group? Sure. And the auctions?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Thank you, Carol.
Okay, thank you, Kathleen and Anthony. All right, tomorrow night we are doing a trivia night starting at 6:30. It's $30 per person, and you could do teams, you could do it individually. And as Rpac chairs, we try to do some events every month that's interesting, to get other agents together, and the money goes directly to the state, to Rpac, to help lobby. So we have if everybody's on Facebook, we have an HGAR Rpac page. It's a private page. You could go on, you could register. You need your NERDS number to register, and you'll see what events are coming up. We have auctions. Right now we're doing an auction of a headshot. Last month we did scotch, we did a jewelry and a spa and an iPad. So we need your help, because as you can see from what Phil was discussing of everything that we do, and what it takes is money to be able to lobby. We also donate to certain assemblymen and senators and congressmen who think the way we do and help us realtors and our community. It's not just us realtors, it's our community. So what we're asking you to do is to please donate to Rpac. Every year when you renew your license every year, there's that $35. If everybody just did that in the state, in Westchester County for HGAR, all our members, we'd be fine. And then come join us when we do an event, because you'll get to meet. It's networking, it's fun. When we get to meet in person again, we'll be doing different things. We'll be doing picnics. We're there, and we're there for you. And we want to have fun events, interesting events, plus help ourselves and our communities. Thank you. So go on our page. Anthony, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Kathleen, you might want to put up that slide where we have the amounts that we've raised so far and what is a target for this year. As Kathleen shares that screen, I just want us to take a real quick look at this slide here. I think it's, yes, there you go. Donations to date, we've raised almost $138,000 this year, and 54% towards goal so far, and 42,000 increase from last year at this time. So that's great, and let's keep that momentum going. Our contributions are up 3,238 last time. Last year, I apologize, was 2,425. So 4103 is a participation goal for 2021, which is 36% of our membership. So if each one of us pitched in, I don't know, $35, $40 or $50 or even $100, I'm a professional beggar for a cause. So I'm shameless about it because it supports our industry and our business. So that's what we've done so far. And there's a great auction online right now. And not only that, all of you who donate and contribute, you will be put on, your name will be added to a list. There is an honor roll that's put out and each month, and it's on Real Estate In Depth, and you can see your name in lights, and absolutely it will help and encourage others. And your investment is important, and there are different levels. If you made a $50 investment, you want to push it to a $99 club, you can add another $40 over the year, and you will go into the $99 club. But at the end of the day, it's for us to support us, to protect us, and to keep our interests in the forefront. I'll turn it over to Kathleen.
I just want to add to you, we also have the pay-as-you-go program. So I know everyone's financial situation is different, but even if you can say pledge 100 or 50 or 500, if you want to split it up into 8 months or pay over 10 months, you can do that. So you're not paying all at once too, if that's a better way for you to go.
And then when you sign up for an event, that money goes towards that also. So everything that you do, so if you're at an event and you're having a good time, that $30 or $35 goes towards your pledge, goes towards your membership levels.
And the auctions are a great way because you actually get something in return
Exactly.
of similar value.
Mhm.
So I just want to let everyone know, thank you so much. And we will be sending the link to the recording of this session for anyone who couldn't attend, or if anybody wanted to listen to it again. I'll be including the legislative priorities and a copy of this slide deck, plus a link to our Facebook group and a link to invest in our Rpac. So thank you to everyone at Coldwell Banker for having us.
And I wanted
Thank you.
to thank all of you guys. One more thing, I actually did sign up for trivia night for tomorrow night. So I'd love to have some Coldwell Banker friends on there. Go onto the HGAR site to sign up for trivia night. Don't make me play this game alone, please, because it's embarrassing. But yeah, no, support Rpac, and I thank you guys for everything you do. I really do. It's supporting our industry in a very difficult. It's always a difficult time, right? But thank you all very much, and thank you for your time today. I really do appreciate it. This was great.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you very much.
Thank you all, and thank you, Tammy, for setting this up. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Have a great day. Be well.
Have a great day. Bye-bye now.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.